What I'd like to share now is a concept I call the three axes, if you will. For us, we've had some learning experiences of business. We've been in business for quite a while, and we kept going through something I call Groundhog Day, meaning we do the same thing over and again, and we just kept getting in our own way as far as growth. And it's kind of embarrassing to admit and share, but at the same time, in understanding this, I find that it's quite enabling. It enables you to move beyond these hurdles that we all seem to have. So as you grow as a service organization, you find that you need to start putting some principles, some processes, some procedures, all these things together. Because when you're a small group, and the principals, if you will, or the founders are there, they've kind of all walk lockstep. They're able to kind of move, they finish each other's sentences. It's kind of a powerful experience. But if you're not one of those key people coming onto that group, it's quite difficult. So, as an engineering firm, we knew engineering was the thing that we had to do best. That's what we were all proud about. We were a bunch of engineers, and we were proud of our engineering prowess. So we would look at our services and we'd say, okay, what do we need to do better? What can we do better? How can we make sure that our engineering is spit spot at the top every time? So we would spend time focusing on that vertical. We'd focus on, okay, how we filled out this form, what did we have to monitor, what did we have to do, and we worked really hard at it. Well, we'd work hard at it, we would grow a little bit, we'd add a few more clients, we'd add an engineer or two, and then something would happen. We'd get to a point where we start getting a certain size and we start shaking, start falling apart. Quality of service would move, we'd go through some turbulence. And inevitably, you'd lose a couple clients, you'd lose an engineer or two, and then we'd be back to that same revenue level. So we looked at it, we said, well, maybe we're doing something wrong. And we focused right again on our expertise, which is engineering, right? So we went to engineering, worked harder on those processes and those systems. And once again, through some effort, we improved a bit more. And we grew a little bit, but once again, hit the turbulence. So this cycle kept hitting us, and that's why we called it Groundhog Day, Groundhog Day. And then at one point, we decided to do the lowest of all low things, and that was to listen to our clientele. We wanted to listen to them. What's going on? What's this transition? Because we spoke to the engineers. Engineers couldn't tell us anything, right? Well, we're working hard. We're doing everything we need to do. So we decided to listen to the clientele. And the clientele tells us something kind of interesting that stood out. When we asked them why they were disengaging, when we asked why they didn't want more services or those type of things, we'd get answers like, well, you didn't show up on time. Or I didn't know what was going to happen next. I was left out of the loop. I didn't understand why you were doing what you were doing, right? Your invoices were hard to understand. I could never get someone on the phone when I wanted to. So you take this group of answers and understanding that we had, and we dropped it back in the middle of our engineers at the engineering table and said, okay guys, this is what they're saying. And the engineers looked blank. It wasn't nerd stuff. It wasn't engineering things at all. It was actually something that was at a different level. It was customer service. So we spent all of our time working on our engineering prowess. How we did this, when we did this, all those little things along this line. But our clientele were not telling us they were disengaging because we failed to mark this box or we failed to configure the router or we left a hole in a firewall. They were leaving or were frustrated about different points. At that point, I realized there's more than one axis, right? We were just focusing on our trade. We'd fallen in love with what we do best. But the client doesn't hire us because they know and they can appreciate everything here. They hire us because they have a need here, but they relate to us on a different axis. And that axis I call the customer service axis. So, how you answer the phone, when you interact, how you schedule, how you follow up after you've done a job, how the billing works, how you follow, all those key things. You see, we interact with many, many businesses. You may only interact with one IT company, one CPA firm, one PR firm, but this axis is in common. So even though I may not know that expertise, I know this axis very well. And I make judgments based on that axis. Well, This became a powerful transition for us. This concept alone took us, in the last 3 years, tripled our revenue by focusing on the customer service axis. Now, it was tough. The engineering group is focused on what they do best. They're engineers. When I told them they had to focus on things on this area, they didn't accept it. So we had to do some tricky things on the back end to get them to understand that actually the job was not just limited to the nerd axis, right? There was a human axis and how we had to interact. And so we did a few things. We even got the clients and customers to be able to give attaboys and appreciate. Say, hey, you know, how you followed up, that was great. Hey, how you responded. So we had to reward them. But we did do it. And in transition, huge rewards financially, stability, all these things. And that's what's enabled us to grow and maintain that growth, which is a wonderful thing as a business leader. That's what you want. So you need to not fall in love with your profession. You're already there in your profession, right? That's why you chose your profession. But this is an axis that's critical. This is how you distinguish. And you need to spend time. You owe it to yourself to spend time actually articulating what that means. Now let me give you a warning here. Customer service in itself, or the phrase customer service, doesn't work. You can't tell your clientele, we've got great customer service. That's like going to McDonald's and them advertising, hey, we've got ketchup. You better have ketchup. You're a burger joint, right? If you are in professional services, you better have some level of customer service. But you need to articulate what that means. That's where the value comes into this. So, when you look at improving your business and growing your business, you have systems you need to deal with that are directly tied to your vertical. But then you also have the exact interaction points defined in clarity, in detail, on what customer service means to you. In fact, that's a fun thing to do. If you're ever interacting with a company, ask them. They tell you they have great customer service, ask them, what does that actually mean? If they can articulate what customer service means, you will get a phone call within. We will answer within this period of time. You will get a response between. If there is an invoice, okay, now you know that they've thought about customer service. If not, it's just a smiley face wave, and it's not going to get you anywhere. So, you stare at this for a while, you realize you've got your trade, you've got the customer service, but if you're going to really get this down to the next level, there's a level beyond this. And that's the experience level. When you take a look at all of these different touch points you have, at some point you need to start thinking, what is the experience? What do I want you to feel when you interact? How are you different? If you're a CPA firm, what are all the other CPAs firm? But what emotion, what experience do you want to convey to your clientele when you have those touches? So I call that the third axis, right? 3D, that's adding depth to it. And everything that you do, you need to review. If I want to portray confidence, or I want to portray caring, or understanding, whatever those experiences and emotions I want to convey, I need to look at each touch point. Does it convey it? Does it accomplish it? When you start putting that together, you start transforming yourself. If you just live on this axis, you're just a bunch of tradesmen. If you live on this axis and combine those two together, you've actually got a pretty strong service business. If you live on this axis, your profits can completely transform. You're now no longer a commodity. Let me point out an example on how important experience is to you. And what I'm going to use is a simple merry-go-round. Let's look at a merry-go-round in the example of being in a carnival. Let's look at a merry-go-round example at a place like Six Flags. And then finally, let's look at a merry-go-round at Disney. It is the same device. The horses go around. But how much money does Disney make off that merry-go-round versus the carnival or versus Six Flags? The delta is incredible. So why? It is experience. What experience do you get? The carnival is utilitarian. Almost a break-fix type environment, right? Six Flags, well, they've given a little bit of thought to customer service, but it's not the experience. It's not the Disney experience. That's the difference. The profit margin is completely different. So if you can focus on the experience and you can deliver that experience, the value you can get for the same merry-go-round is tremendously different and far more gratifying.